But and a good day to you all, and welcome to our live show, our weekend preview for the Pegasus at Gulfstream Park. I am Nick Hines, your host, along with Joe Moran, your co-host, and of course, one that is the astute manager of my racehorse racing manager. And I'm pleasure to be back and what looks to be a tremendous weekend, Joe. And we're going to touch on numerous things. And of course, last night on the heels of the Eclipse Awards, a big congratulations going out to Cody's Wish. What can you say? And what a year it's been. Of course, in memory of the late, great Cody Dorman, what a magical ride he took us on. But our job and our perspective this week is going to be on horse racing in itself. And of course, for my racehorse, for you, the partners, we've got a couple of exciting prospects going to take place and compete, not only on Pegasus Saturday, but rolling into Oaklawn. Great to have Oaklawn back on Sunday. Without further ado, Joe Moran, how are you?
It's a pleasure to be back. These are the weekends we look forward to in racing with the Pegasus. Today you had the big prep races in Maidan of Dubai as well, so it was exciting to see some of those prep races take place. Coming off the heels of the Eclipse, it's a good time to celebrate the horses that are the main achievers of it all, and looking forward to two runners of our own in Rosie's Alibi and Phantom Ride this weekend for my racehorse.
I just want to remind you all, this is a live show, and I know that there are a number of you that have already sent in questions and thoughts or opinions. And we're also going to have an exciting announcement regarding some SEC approvals on horses that were on deck. I know many of you had inquired. I know when I was out at the track a few weeks ago, kept knocking, when are these horses going to be available? Well, New York got good news for you. In addition to that handicap performer in Blue Devil, and excited for his campaign here in 2024. And of course, a big congratulations to those that are a part of Simply Enchanting. What a tremendous win that was, Joe. And before we kind of jump in to the Pick 5 at Gulfstream, there was something about this win. And I know that our CEO and founder, Michael Barron, said it perfectly in a sense that there's always something a little more special when you score with a first-time starter and a newly turned 3-year-old, much less by Nyquist with that tremendous pedigree.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it was even Phil D'Amato's excitement after the race. You could see how much that win meant to him and really what he thought that meant for the future. We always thought she had ability. That race was originally scheduled for 6.5 furlongs. Due to lack of entries, it got moved down to 6, which we didn't think would work in her advantage. We did like a little live show in the paddock as we do going into the race. And the one thing that I'll say, my mind really changed. And I even had texted you when she walked into the paddock. She, in my opinion, outlooked that field. You never know what you're going to get facing two Baffert first-time starters, but I'll say she outlooked them. And I think the key was she was able to be so close to the pace. And I think that was the big question mark. She got out of the gate well and put herself in the race. And she just showed a lot of class with still a lot of greenness there that I think there's so much to improve on.
A tremendous start here, Joe, in 2024. And of course, so we're excited to see what that next step will be with Forbidden Kingdom. Perhaps he would take a trip abroad. Of course, we're going to rely heavily upon our Hall of Fame trainer, Richard Mandela, who's had an incredible past 6 months. And by the way, congratulations going out to Hall of Fame trainer Bill Mott. We were, of course, happy to have him as part of a team MRH. You look at the finalists and the trainers. For example, Chad Brown, who trained for my racehorse, Brad Cox, a my racehorse trainer. And of course, Irad Ortiz Jr., a winning rider as well. But hopefully this year, 2024 will be a successful one. We've gotten off to a great start, of course, with an exciting prospect in Simply Enchanting. And as mentioned, Forbidden Kingdom, the sky's limit, hoping to get him that grade 1 among several others that we're looking forward to. And, I think our motivation here at my racehorse is to have these live shows that we can make it interactive and gives you an opportunity as an owner, as a partner, to kind of share your thoughts and feelings as well. All right. In regard to the announcement, no, not as far as those horses that are being released, but talk to us about a promotion, Joe, that is taking place tomorrow with Rosie's Alibi as a result of potentially either winning silks or a $200 My Racehorse gift card, which either way is a win-win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start it off with that Bet MRH code that we have there. And I'll get you that $10 free bet, and it will match $150 deposit match, which is always nice. I know we like to play the races. I could cover a ticket or two, maybe not ours that we're going to get into, but it's a good start. And then in addition, it's a chance to win a set of the My Racehorse silks. I'll be worn on Saturday by Luis Saez of Rosie's Alibi. And it's a great way. We've done this with in California with MicroShare. The owners love it, and it's unique. You get them nice and dirty, and it's a good thing to hang up on your wall. And it's a cool thing that you can't replace. It's one of these things of memorabilia when we come up with these giveaways. This is an expensive one, but it's worth it. It goes a long way to have hanging on your wall.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention the fact you don't want to wash them, folks. You certainly want to leave that dirt on there, but of course, that's going to keep that luck and contain it going forward. So do get involved. And, for example, if you're not a partner in Rosie's Alibi, you'll still have the opportunity to take advantage of the gift card, which I think is wonderful. Not to mention the fact that we have gotten some approval here that we'll announce a bit later in regards to the SEC on horses and availability. So it's very straightforward. Again, I think as far as First Bet teaming up here with My Racehorse, it's kind of an all-inclusive, and it's an exciting time. And of course, Rosie's Alibi, who goes in Saturday into race number 1, it's just a power-packed card with wagering opportunities. We're going to go into a pick 5 here in just a moment, but she is drawn up in race 1. We'll go through her race, Joe and myself. Scratches haven't fully come in yet. It's a field of 14, and the condition entry-level allowance in the distance of 1 mile and 16th on the turf. She's in post position number 4. And as Joe mentioned, for trainer Todd Pletcher, Luis Saez in the irons, it's 6-1. Don't think we're going to be beating 6-1 when it's all said and done, because we know how the My Racehorse effect. That was the other point I wanted to mention, Joe, before we get into the ticket. Simply and Cheney, how did she end up at 6-1?
Well,
what's going on?
We were in the paddock 9-5. They were on the track about to go in the gate. We were 3-1. Said 3-1, I was getting enticed, and then all of a sudden when they broke out of the gate, I saw 6-1, and I was wanting to hit my head over the railing a little bit, but it was exciting walking into the winner's circle none the least.
Yeah, we so often talk about horses that, they're in a position like she was at the half-mile pole. You'd have thought she would have dropped down to, say, 2-1 or 9-5 at that point. So when you get that reverse swing as far as the odds are concerned, it doesn't happen often. Unfortunately, I didn't take as much of advantage of as I needed to, because when they scale the race back to 6 furlongs, I overthunk it. It's hard winning with a first-time starter. And clearly with her pedigree, she's bred to run 1 mile and 1/8 at least. So I wasn't going to hold it against her. If I made a win bet and she ran second or third, I didn't want to be mad. I wanted to just be happy that if she wins, she wins. But regardless, I made a few dollars, so I can't complain. So be sure to check out that promotion. Of course, you must enter in order to qualify for that promotion, and you'll have a chance to win those silks, Rosie's Alibi, or that $200 gift card. All right, let's move on.
I just want to add one thing, Nick. That promotion there is not just for Rosie's Alibi owners; it's for all My Racehorse owners. So just make sure you use that Bet MRH so that gets plugged in. I saw one question come through, and I believe another question was, if you were already had a First Bet account and you're a My Racehorse owner, I believe you can still apply that promo code, or if you use one of our promo codes before, you'll already be in there.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Again, so don't be bashful. If you have questions, of course, send them into our support team. And again, we'll be on this show here for the better part of the next 30 minutes or so. So if you have some rolling questions, be sure to send them in. And a big thank you to Hannah, who is behind the scenes here producing and making this live program possible. And all right, well, let's move on to a pick 5 opportunity. And I know, Joe, these pick 5s can be difficult, right? They've got a $750,000 all stakes pick 5 guarantee. It begins in race number 9 on Saturday, which is going to be tomorrow. Approximate post time for this will be at 3:13 Eastern, 12:13 on the left coast. Last year, the pool ended up in the neighborhood of 1.8 million. They guaranteed at 750. I'd have to imagine it might inch toward 2 million. And as far as the event at Gulfstream, what exactly entails there with the event at Gulfstream Park, Joe?
I believe we got the My Racehorse Lounge. Obviously, we'll have a bunch of Rosie Alibi's owners out there, but it's going to be a great day. We'll have Mike, who has been helping us out over the last few months, Caitlin Dunn out there, and Danae as well. So it'll be a fun day, exciting just day of racing in general to be part of. And I wish I could be there, but I'll say you guys will have a great time with the hosts there.
Well, somebody's got to hold down the fort, Joe. You know that. All right, moving on. Let's talk about this pick 5 opportunity. And it starts with a race where I think there are going to be kind of mixed opinions, but the idea is Intrepid Daydream is a horse that might be stepping up in the right direction. It's the Grade 2 Inside Information Stakes presented by Don Julio Tequila, 7/8 mile. Hopefully we're not having to hit shots for the wrong reasons after this race. But, Joe, we ended up going 4 deep in this race, and Gerrymander was one that ended up on both of our radars. Maybe I'm a little surprised this horse was 8-1 on the morning line.
Yeah, I'm actually really shocked. I guess the question mark could be the distance. 7/8. This horse has been successful at the 1-turn mile, which you would think would correlate very well to 7/8. But the 2 7/8 race haven't been its best, even though against much tougher competition, I think, as a whole.
Okay.
But you see that race 2 back winning by 25 lengths. I know it was a 2-horse field, but when you win by 25 lengths, that's got to be noted. And the 2 previous allowance races were bang-up efforts there. You see 4 back running against my racehorse's previous 63 caliber as well. So it's been holding good company, and I think one that you definitely can't leave off your ticket.
Well, it's crazy just to think. And, we mentioned Chad Brown, finalist for the Eclipse Award. It just tells you about the ebbs and flows of the game at press time. 0 for 27. Now, I think that includes the results that we've had today as I'm looking at Formulator, but you have to think at some point he's going to break through, and it could very well be with a horse like this. So I agree. I mean, she beat one horse in that 25-length score, 2 back in Sunset Louise, who was, let's put it this way, I mean, she was clearly overmatched. She came back to finish a disappointing 5th in the Empire Distaff, but it really just came down to pace dynamic. And that's where, I think as a morning line odds maker, you have to be cognizant of how people are going to bet, but at the same time, when you look at pace flow. So when you also consider a horse that you brought up on our pre-production meeting, the 9, Mary Quite Contrary, you get us one a big look here. Came back strong off the respite for Eddie Pleasa Jr. This barn is actually hitting in stride. They had a blowout victory the other day with a price horse, and I would imagine this horse coming back off that layoff second start here, this horse should fire in a big way. He had I believe it was Kicking that won the other day at 42-1. So is that how you see it? Does this horse get the stock first run trip?
I guess it's going to be with the pace dynamic that you mentioned. I think Sassy Nature is probably the quickest of the quick.
Yeah.
So I think this allows Mary Quite Contrary to be a little closer than maybe we've seen in the past. I think it really comes down, for me, the thing that you can't dismiss here is when we talk about this, and I say Gulfstream Park a lot of times, horses for courses. This filly or this mare is 7 for 9 at Gulfstream Park. 2 seconds at the distance. She's 4 for 8 with 3 seconds. She just can't be dismissed whatsoever. She's going to get a good tactical trip on the outside, should be able to stay out of trouble, and that just might be enough to win it all.
All right. Clearly, we added Intrepid Daydream, and as mentioned, Bluefield. That's the long shot that I like to the inside, coming off of what I thought was a better look 5th. She had a reason to react. Another horse exiting the Grade 3 Sugar Swirl, which, again, this is a race where you can get, these competitors to actually turn the tables. You've got 3 horses coming in that race, including Olivia Darling. I kind of talked Joe into putting Bluefield on there because the 3rd start back off a respite. Her career best speed figure was earned at Gulfstream. You get Flavian Pratt. She could get a pretty cozy trip here, and she's very tactical. I might actually have to make a win bet on her because she would be my A horse in this spot. But, glad to have her because we went 4 deep and the ticket cost isn't that substantial. So what did you want to add on Intrepid Daydream as far as the reasoning for her?
Well, I think the big thing that I love, it's going to be the 2nd start for the new barn. Ran very well in the 1st start for the new barn. And I think that extra furlong is going to be key for this horse. Another one, if we're really talking about who may get the first jump, to me, it may be this horse. And I think this horse could be sitting a cozy 3rd or 4th early on and find a real good trip. Gets Tyler Gaffleone, who knows his way around Gulfstream Park very well. And I think we're just covered with these 4. Selfishly, I wouldn't mind if Mary quite contrary, or Intrepid Daydream doesn't win and we could get Gerrymander or Bluefield to start the pick five price.
Yeah, I'm just not. The one thing about playing these rolling exotics when you play horizontally is that you have a very good look. Now, our tickets in play, this is going to go forward, unless there's a scratch, then perhaps we could, audibilize a little bit. We probably won't. We'll just relegate it to a post-time favorite. When you do get a scratch on a horizontal play, the 6s, 5s, and 4s, you're going to be relegated to a favorite, and in pick threes in certain jurisdictions. But if you already had the favorite, you'll be doubled up. So let's hope we've got bases covered. We roll on to our race number 10, and this is at 1 1/16 on the turf course, the TAA Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance Pegasus World Cup Filly Mare Turf Invitational Stakes, and we went 3 deep. And who was your top choice in here, Joe?
I'm going to have to go with number 4. Off of that U.S. debut, Star Fortress, to win by 10 lengths like she did, it was just ultra impressive. It was a graded stake. I don't think it was the strongest race behind her. Still had a next out winner in Lovely Princess, who ran 3rd there. But the way that she did this in her U.S. debut, she's got plenty of time. I mean, it's one thing that we always talk about when horses come back, whether it's off a layoff, or changing circuits or anything of that nature, and they run that big effort. You need that recovery time. So in this case, I like that recovery time that she hasn't run since the end of November. And I just think, getting even more firmer turf is probably going to be a benefit to her. So she's run over good firm before in her past in Europe. And to me, she's just going to be the horse to beat.
We also included the 7 Fluffy Socks and the 11 Mission of Joy. We both agreed that when you look at Mission of Joy in that race that she ran last out in the QE2, I felt she had an opportunity to win that particular day, but just didn't quite kick on. I think it may have had something to do with the trip. But if you look at the competition, Maj came back to get beat a Nostril in the Breeders' Cup Mile and just touched out by a champion in Master of the Seas. It was clearly a very difficult race in all facets of the game. But the point that she comes back fresh, she's been targeted for this particular race. The only knock on Mission of Joy, she hasn't raced here. The other aspect to her is that she's won well fresh before. Johnny V appears to have some very live kind of underrated mounts on this card. So clearly she's going to have to make up the difference because she hasn't raced since Keeneland. But going back to Fluffy Socks, as we go back and forth on her, I'm hoping that she's not a bit of a hanger. I mean, she's just won for her last 11. You've got the slumping Chad Brown, which, as I speak, is probably going to win a race. But what we liked about her was the fact she was making her 3rd start back off the respite. And when you look at the paper race, Joe, the pace seems reasonable, but not overabundant. But Mission of Joy could have the upper hand in getting the slip here.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the key, just with that outside post position, that she can get in and at least save ground. So I think that's going to be the key. But with not an overwhelming amount of pace, I think she'll be able to break, get over, and save ground there, which will be a key move for her.
Wide open race. I'm hoping we got enough chicklets to move forward. I mean, we used 3. We feel that we got, the 3 best horses, at least on paper. But, again, $750,000 guarantee, all stakes pick 5, pool last year in excess of 1.8, probably 2 million. Get a couple of prices here. We could at least get a comma. If we find a shocker or 2 in that ticket, we could get 2 commas, but could easily pay $3,000 or $4,000 in a perfect world of imperfection, as we like to say. All right, 3 races left on the ticket. The Grade 3 Fred W. Hooper Stakes presented by Whispering Angel. Another deep field here. Total of 11 horses. The blinkers come off. The 3 Steel Sunshine. You've got 8 to 5 and Hijazi. You and I both agree that Hijazi could be a gate to wire threat.
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of debated possibly this being a single, which would allow us to spread around. So don't blame anyone if you decide to go that route. Just a runner-up to Speedboat Beach. The time before that was a dominated winner of Ghost of Midnight, who came back to win a first level allowance and a second level allowance in Southern California. I guess to me, the only fear I had of singling this horse is the distance. I think the key that benefits him is it's 1 turn. If it was 2 turns, I'd be a little more concerned. But we know when Bob Baffert gets gets on a plane or ships his horse, generally they're ready to go. And I think this horse is just coming into the race ready. So he's the horse to beat, in my opinion. But as you said, it is a deep, wide open event as well here.
I want to bring up the fact that, on this day, Pegasus Day, none of these horses are able to run on LASIK. So as handicappers, as horse players, whether you be novice or you're an experienced handicapper, be very careful of wagering on horses when you look at numbers that are coming off races in which they had LASIKs then are suddenly coming off. Yeah. Now, on the flip side of things, horses that have been racing without LASIKs for a period of time and aren't running well, that's another reason to be a little bit wary of including them on your tickets. But so the good news is, in Ajazi's case, this horse only had one race with LASIKs. But the good news is that the two recent Beyer speed figures matched that race. Yeah. So we are well and confident. Now, you made a case for Cyclone Mischief. I was on the fence. So if this horse were to win, I'm going to give you a little more credit.
Yeah, well, this is just kind of the long shot play. I really think this horse is a one-turn horse. He was kind of our, I don't want to say price play, but he was our price play when we did one of these shows for the Florida Derby. We did an event at Gulfstream as well, and he was kind of our play, and I thought he ran tremendous there. He does love Gulfstream Park. I think that's a thing that I kind of am keying on a little bit here, and I think the one turn second off the layoff, he really needed that last race. He made an early move and kind of flattened out, so I think he's going to be much tighter this time. He's going to be a big price, but I think he could be one that you could capitalize, one that I want to keep in the ticket, and one that I'll use underneath in any exotics I play as well.
All right, and then, of course, we use the 11 in Tumbarumba, who is making the second start back off of the
eight.
Sorry about that. We were going to use Tumbarumba. We ended up using the 8 Ekrativ, who was kind of a disappointing 10th in the Cigar Mile. Looking at the replay of this race, and Joe, you agree that this horse just didn't handle the track at all. And it was just an off day. The horse only had one prior race where he didn't run well, and then he was sent to the sidelines after that. So I think we're going to see this horse get back to his A game. Once again, it's Chad Brown, and you're getting 5-1 in this 5-year-old gelded son of Practical Joe. The one component of this race that I think is lacking, and I'm looking at a number of races tomorrow that I kind of feel this way, it's the pace scenario. And if Hijazi is able to get out to the front and relax and is able to out-sprint Expressman and even perhaps Giant Game, who's a personal favorite of ours, it's going to be interesting. But I would think that Ekrativ would have enough speed to at least get in the hunt and then pounce. We ended up eliminating Tumbarumba. He's beaten in a state-bred, Louisiana-bred stake last out. I kind of get the impression his better races are with LASIKs, although he won without. But, once again, as we determined the fact that Hijazi could have very well been a single in this spot.
Yeah, no doubt. And the one thing I'll note on the Chad Brown runner is you look 3 back in that race, he finished only a length and a half behind Cody's Wish at arguably one of his best distances. And for me, if he can get back to that race, and he did not run a bad race in the 49er as well, I just think he holds a big chance in here.
And I think, just based on days like this, and weather – the weather's always a factor, but as far as the weather is concerned, from my understanding, it should be nice down there tomorrow. But the one thing that you'll recognize, it'll be 82 degrees from what I'm seeing here. But the one thing you'll recognize on days like this, tracks tend to cater towards speed types. And, I could be dead wrong. At the end of tomorrow, you'll probably look back and say, wow, closings were great. I'd be very surprised if that were to happen. So, personally, I like to try and gravitate my handicapping toward speed on days like this. As far as days like this, Joe, are there any handicapping factors that you like to look at?
Again, I kind of brought it up for the leg one of the horses for courses. But on a day like this, you get horses shipping from all over, trying a new track for the first time. And I think especially on the main track, more than the turf, but the main track at Gulfstream Park, I think horses for courses is a huge factor.
All right. Big thank you to those who have tuned in for our weekend preview for Pegasus Live as Nick Hines, Joe Moran going through an all-stakes pick 5. Hopefully at the end of the day, Joe, you and I will look like all stars, just not playing all stakes. All right. Moving on to the 12th race, which will kick off the late double, the final two legs of our Pick 5 ticket, the Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational Stakes, sponsored by First Bet. And you have scratches of the 13 and 14. And as you can surmise, we went 4 deep here. Who was your top choice in this spot, Joe?
Well, I want to touch on two things. My top choice, I hate to go to the chalk, but Warm Heart is just an ultra filly. I played against her in the Breeders' Cup, and she ran a bang-up race in the Breeders' Cup. A little worried about distance and just how much they're asking of her. But just going off the topic of angles that you like to play on big day, we'll kind of combine both our angles of speed. Horses for Courses, a horse that we landed on, which I believe is a price that I just want to confirm. Yeah, 10-1, number 11, main event. This horse, 3 for 4 at Gulfstream Park's turf course, 1 second. It just really seems to be a horse that's rounding into form. I think the biggest challenge that this horse is going to have, breaking from post 11, is going to be able to get over and get that position. But when we kind of handicap this race, there is not a ton of speed, and that's kind of how we landed on him. So, if he breaks like he has, I don't think there's going to be any issue that he can possibly control the pace or be right there with another pace setter.
Yeah, I definitely think that's going to be a key price horse. Even if you're playing this race vertically, you're needing a key, but he is the horse of the moment, if you will. And do note that he had earned that 95 buyer speed figure 2 back. I know you've looked at Thoroughgrass as well, but he came back sans Lasix and earned a career best 96 buyer speed figure. So evidently, whatever George Weaver's doing with this horse, his barn is white hot. 30% win rate for George Weaver. So hot trainer. When he employs Javier Castellano, they get a $2 plus ROI. It's interesting to note, Joe, that Warm Heart, your top choice here, she is dispatched at 9 to 5 on the morning line. She breezed an easy half mile this morning at Gulfstream Park over the main track today. 13, 35, 26, 27, 52, and 4 the day before. Is that something that you hear of often where the turf horse, they breeze on the main track the day before the big race?
No, definitely not. But the one thing I'll say is if Aidan O'Brien's doing it, I am not going to doubt him one bit.
All right, so Warm Heart, who did finish a game second, the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf, beating the neck. The reservation there, the distance, it was 1.8 miles in her wheelhouse. She's never gone that distance, but Tomlinson rating suggesting that should not be of an issue. And of course, looking further in on this field as well, I thought Integration was a very interesting horse that we talked about. The newly turned 4-year-olds, the 3, the 4, and the 5. We decided to go with the 3, who is unbeaten in 3 tries. Shiv McGahee for the West Point Thoroughbreds and Partners. He's going to have to work a trip, but he certainly looks like a horse that's up to the task. And then, of course, King Max. King Max split main event and Jerry the Nipper, who both show up here. But what was the reasoning here, Joe, of King Max at that price?
Well, I think it's going to be one that was a pretty big effort off of a bit of a layoff, getting second off the layoff and running a career best figure like that. He could just be a horse that's rounding into form, ran good over the surface, and I think that's a big advantage, as we were kind of just talking about.
Yeah, Jorge Delgado was 21% last year, according to the formulator, from his last 56 starters, 27% second off the bench and right at that $2 ROI, and you get the re-ride for Mr. Egan in the irons, and it's a second start without Lasix. So yeah, I think this is going to be a fun dog leg of a race. You pointed out the 11. I think King Max is intriguing. I don't think anybody's going to go off at a ridiculously short price. Warm Heart will likely go off favored, but I don't see her being less than 8 to 5. She may just be the best horse, but I don't think it's going to be that easy, or we would have just singled her. All right, moving on to the finale, the granddaddy of them all, if you will, Pegasus World Cup Invitational, $3 million. It's a grade 1, and once again, a full field. This is what you like to see on days like this. Doesn't always happen. 13 horses lining up. We've got a 9 to 5 favorite in the 7 National Treasure. He was your winner of last year's Preakness Stakes for a Hall of Fame trainer, Bob Baffert. However, since that time, Joe, he's lost 4 in a row.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We kind of took a stand. to play against him, I'm sticking to my guns here. And the horse that I'm kind of landing on is going to be the newly turned 4-year-old. Generally not one that or generally not the angle that I like to pick in a race like this, but I think it's just a horse that's rounding into form, and that's going to be number 8, First Mission. 7-2 on the morning line. Brad Cox and Louis Saez have teamed up to do a lot of damage, 37% between last year and this year. And I just think this is a horse that's tactical. He's going to be forwardly placed, and a horse that I think is just really going to be getting good at the right time. It was a tough loss last time to Trademark at Churchill and the Clark. It was his second race off the layoff, first time against Graded Stakes Company as an older horse or facing older horses. And I think he's just going to improve, and I think he's going to be able to turn the tables on Trademark. I think he's going to have to do more than just that. But that 102 buyer is a pretty solid number.
Yeah, I agree. And, anytime you see horses that are in that developmental line like he is, and I think the sheets would probably corroborate that. I mean, he got beyond that century mark, was given some time. Big congratulations going out to Godolphin once again, winning for top breeder of 2023 and leading owner. First Mission has never been out of the equation, essentially in the exactas in all 5 career starts. But we're not here for exactas. We're here to win and try and pick you a few winners. O'Connor, Safi Joseph Jr., this horse, for what it's worth, came in off the prep and winning the Harlan's Holiday, gutted out a victory over Grand Aspen, who shows up here. When you look to the distance and the success on the track, you'd have to think that O'Connor, does he take money down from that 8-1 morning line, or do you think he's going to end up at that price?
My gut says he's going to end up at that price. I think he should come down a little bit. I do think he's going to have to, from a competition standpoint, this is maybe a touch tougher than what he's facing. But coming off back-to-back wins, seems to be a horse that's 7 now that really seems to be getting good. The best of his game that he's been. As we've been kind of repeatedly saying, the horses for courses, proven over this track. Love the way that he ran in the prep race, the Harlan's Holiday. And I think he's got a big shot here as well.
We included Skippy Longstocking. Safi Joseph Jr. is certainly going to he'll have some fingerprints on this day with some live contenders. Now, he was well behind National Treasure in the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. But for me personally, when you go back and look at the race as it played out, I mean, first of all, Skippy Longstocking was shipping in from Charlestown. Secondly, I think National Treasure may have had the advantage of some home track cooking there. But when you look at Skippy Longstocking, I'd love to own a horse like this, $1.5 million, a 6-time winner. The brunt of his best work, though, Joe, has come at Gulfstream Park, and kind of come back to that initial premise that you have, horses for courses. Is that the reason that any and everyone should be including this horse on their tickets?
Absolutely, and I mean, I think if we're just going to take a look at comparing the two stablemates of O'Connor and Skippy Longstocking, Tyler Gaffleone was aboard both of them in their last start. I'm sure he had the pick of who he wanted to ride back. He picked Skippy Longstocking. When they have faced off twice before, Skippy Longstocking has beat him in both those starts. So I'd say he holds the upper hand. At the same time, I don't think the other horse can be dismissed based off his recency.
Yeah. What's interesting is that the last, 2 out of 3 wins that he had are with Lasix. But the one thing I like is that they freshened him. They knew exactly what they were pointing for here. If you look to his race last year in the Pegasus World Cup, he made a big internal move and then flattened out. But he did come back to win the Challenger. So clearly he just had an off day. He may have bounced, at that time. He ran so hard. He ran a career best 106 in the prep in the Grade 3 Harlan's Holiday. So yet again, I mean, we're taking a stand against National Treasure. What's your primary reason for taking a stand against a horse that's going to go favorite here?
Well, one big thing, I don't think this is his preferred distance. You do get a little bit of the shorter stretch at Gulfstream Park. But I just don't think this plays into his favor. I think he's going to get pressure. I mean, he has proved that he doesn't necessarily, they don't ride him like he needs the lead, but I think that's when he does his best running, when he's in there. And we've kind of, not to necessarily call him a grinder, but he's a horse that you kind of got to stay on and stay involved. You kind of look back at the Preakness when he won that. They were kind of riding him almost the entire race. So I think he's just a vulnerable favorite. And I just don't think the circumstances and race scenario set up perfect for him.
Yeah, again, getting messages and thoughts on a ticket as far as our ticket cost. Trust me, people, this $216 is well spent. But the truth is that looking at it as it being a group ticket per se and an opportunity to kind of just have some fun, because that's really what it's all about. We could have easily come with a single, right? But not so fast, because of the fact that this is the type of pick 5 that could pay north of $2,000. And I think if we were to single one horse, though, Joe, we said it a minute ago, it's clearly a Jazzy, right?
Yep.
Would that be the single?
Yep.
Yeah. So, if you're out there in my Racehorseville and you're playing your own ticket, if you were to say, I want to play this ticket, but I don't want to spend $216, the good news is you don't have to. But at the same time, if you wanted to single a horse, I think a Jazzy, and Joe would agree, is certainly going to be that horse. But look, we took a stand against National Treasure. That pick 5 tomorrow is going to pay, and it's going to pay well, regardless if there's 2 or 3 favorites in the sequence. Just my opinion.
Yep. Can't agree more. I mean, all 5 races, you got full fields and various horses with chances. So, I mean, even though we spread and tried to cover ourselves the best we could,
sure.
After the fact, you could sit back and say, why didn't we have that horse? But that's what makes the gambling and horse racing so fun.
All right. Well, we gave you a couple of price opportunities in there too. Again, I think it's nice that the one thing about playing 6s, 5s, and 4s, not so much 3s and doubles, because they're shorter and they're not as lucrative. But it's when you have certain key horses in the sequence. I've had key horses that we pointed out, I pointed out, you pointed out, that one $20 bet can pay for the entire ticket. $20 to win on a $20 winner on a 9-to-1 shot is going to pay for the ticket. So, and again, for me, I think there are horses that we discussed that might make that difference, but it should be an enjoyable day. But it wouldn't be that much of an enjoyable day if we hadn't had a runner in the opener. I am so much looking forward to seeing Rosie Alibi back in the mix. It's great because it's race number 1. As much as we'd love to be running for $3 million in the nightcap, but to kind of kick off the day, Joe, with Rosie's Alibi is good stuff. And kudos going out to Todd Pletcher and his team for getting her ready for Pegasus Day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think she's coming into this race really well based off her work time. We were hoping to make a race at the end of December. That had to get pushed back to this spot. But, generally when the patience pays off, just kind of circling back to Simply Enchanting, we were hoping to make a race in December. We had to kind of detour and take a little extra time, and it paid off in the long run. We've been wanting to get her on the turf. And Todd, even though she was beating 11 lengths in her last race, Todd was still very optimistic after that race. The winner of that race came back to run 3rd in a Grade 1 in Southern California, the American Oaks. So I think this is it's going to be a good gauge race to tell us, where we're at and what we have moving forward. The one thing I can say from what I've been able to see from the videos that we've shared is I think she's coming into this race training as well as she has.
All right. And I believe we have a workout we're looking at right now. And what can you ascertain from this breeze 6 days ago from this time? And of course, 7 days out from the race.
Yeah. The one thing, she's working with a nice other Justified filly, Alpha Bella. In all of her work, she's never really had to be asked to do much. She's done everything in hand, and that's the one thing that I love to see. The one thing that we've kind of talked about repetitively with Todd Pletcher's works, even though this is a half-mile official time, you'll see these horses, and from the other videos that we also send out from the clocker down there, Dave Norton, is that these works generally continue past the wire. That's kind of when the tests come for these workmates, but you'll see her well in hand, right, even though she's getting pressure on the outside, just doing it all on her own.
Yeah, she certainly looks a picture of health there and seems to be doing it nicely. Look, to me, it appears as if she's actually added some valuable weight as well. And perhaps it's not only the time that she's had since that race, but the maturity, right? I mean, she's clearly, based on what we've seen before, I mean, she seems to have kind of filled out and grown a little bit.
Absolutely. We spent a lot of time, and Roderick Watchman was a big part of this when she was at the farm. She kind of went through a bout of ulcers, and getting those under control and working with trainer Todd Pletcher of keeping those under control. I think that's been a big advantage of seeing her weight on top of the maturity.
And she's already taken on some residual, having finished 3rd in that stake back in 2022. It seems like so long ago.
I know.
Wow. But good news is patience paying it forward, as we've come to find out. And I think that's been a big part of the program. And kudos going out to the partners for your patient. That's one thing that I actually take quite a bit of pride in, not only in the events that we've done or, being at a race and, just listening to the partners, is that they're all about the horse and giving the horse time off, and they don't complain when we got to turn this horse out. Trust me, I've had partners that I've had to deal with, and it's just one thing after another. But the My Racehorse partners, you've truly been great. You take so much pride in your horses, and obviously patients can certainly do a lot for these animals. I mean, they're asked to do so much early on in the game. I mean, that's just part of what it is. I mean, this game is kind of gotten to the point where a lot of it's predicated on instant gratification. And it's just like when you buy into a horse. Think about Simply Enchanting. When we purchased her at Keeneland in September, there was a thought process. She might not race until she's 3. No one complained. Everyone was perfectly fine with it. And, of course, our partners at Old Bones and Joey Plots, everybody was on the same page. And, hopefully it's going to lead to bigger and better things. So thank you all for that. And, of course, your positivity can certainly take us to the next level, and wouldn't be here without you. All right. So Rosie's Alibi, Joe, let's take a look at the past performances. And once again, it's going to feel like kind of springish, 82 degrees. It's going to be gorgeous. The sun's going to be out, and hopefully the sun is going to be shining down on the winter circle at just after the 11:05 Eastern time on Saturday. So be sure to get locked in, because post time, 11 a.m. Eastern, and take us through the field here. Who are the main competitors, and what type of trip do you anticipate Rosie's Alibi getting here?
Well, I think she's going to be forwardly placed. Let's start off with that. I think with the distance going a mile and a 16th, when you really dig down in the PPs, I don't think there's a ton of early foot. So I think naturally we just got to put her there, and whether that puts her on the top pair lead in the pack or putting her right in that first pack, Luis Saez is one of the best gate riders in the game. So he'll definitely put her in a tactical position. When I look at the field, I do think it's a wide open race. We got another full field here on Pegasus. They have 12 horses in the body. I think the one horse Zippadoo's got to be considered. Granted, she was beaten 3 lengths, finishing 8th in the Tropical Oaks. That was Stakes Company. Comes back against Allowance Company, where she was 3rd, only beaten 3/4 a length. The horse that I'm most intrigued, and I think the question mark horse, is going to be number 7, Boston Rose, who is importing from France, gets Flavien Prat in the irons. When you look at the time form, and you can talk a little more about time form as well, the 2 time forms we see are 64 and 76. If we were looking at a Breeders' Cup Day, these are not super strong numbers by any means, but this is a first level allowance race. So one thing that I'm going to go off of, an 11 horse field on debut over firm ground, which is key, as she'll be getting firm ground here tomorrow. She was a 5-length winner. And, when we see these horses import from Europe or France, and they come over here, a lot of them are coming here to get that firm ground. I think that's what she's going to get here. And Christophe Clement has done this plenty of times with imports and being successful. So this is the one that I'm probably most intrigued of seeing what she's capable of. I think she's going to have to run better than she has in her last 2, but I think she certainly got the ability.
The one take I have here is it's kind of a sleepy race on paper as far as the pace is concerned. Mm-hmm. And, I know we pointed it out multiple times. I'm not a full-on pace handicapper, but I'm going to point it out because I think in order to kind of have an understanding of how a race maps out, if you're betting a stalker or closer, you have to kind of know what the pace is going to look like. So for me, based on workout, based on the fact that, she comes in with a time form US of a 95 pace rating. I mean, what's interesting about this race, there's a former Edge trainee and Demogorgon who's flanked to her outside. Now, I think you and I can maybe both agree that Demogorgon might be better over the Tapeta. Her turf races, she does own a victory over the turf at Gulfstream. But I feel like with her, Demogorgon could be a little aggressive, which I would prefer. I don't think I want to see Rosie's Alibi in the lead. As far as betting this race, Lady Maeve, the 6 horse, is the direction I would be willing to go. She's last seen at Woodbine in October. Her numbers are steady. She's a 7-time winner. She's only been out of the trifecta 7 of 24 with 7 wins. There's a lot to like there with Lady Maeve. But once again, I could see a horse that would get out on the lead here if not win, it's going to be right there. So I really hope that Rosie's Alibi is going to go to her natural talent, because you go back to her Parks win, she won going 6.5 furlongs over a relatively deep track that day, and she attended the pace. When she raced last out at 1.8 to Churchill, she didn't run bad at all. You mentioned the winner, came back to be grade 1 placed, and she still ended up in front of the third horse that day, and it was a deep field. So would you see Rosie's Alibi potentially being on the front end here?
I really can. And I think one of the other things that I didn't really touch on is when you really look at that comeback race at Keeneland, I think you just simply draw a line through it. But I think also the key of going into her next race is I don't think she got much out of that race from a fitness standpoint at Keeneland. So to come back and run 1.125 as she did at Keeneland, she had the right to get tired. And I think from a fitness standpoint here, she's going to be much more prepared for the 2-turn task that she's going to get faced with.
All right. Be sure to get tuned in if you're not going to be there at Gulfstream Park at 11 a.m. tomorrow, Saturday, January 27th, 2024. Rosie's Alibi coming back. She's already stakes place, so hopefully this will lead in to a fun campaign here. It's an entry-level allowance, but, a nice purse of $91,000, which would certainly help the My Racehorse wallet, would get her beyond the $100,000 earnings mark. And, she's already gained that residual with the black type, and, of course, a sibling who is a stakes performer as well. All right. There's also on Sunday, Joe, we talked about Phantom Ride. Phantom Ride going postward, Oaklawn Park, thankfully kind of getting back to normal standards. It's a 9-race card on Saturday. No stakes racing, but there is a pretty good couple of allowance races on the card. Phantom Ride, race number 3, is that right?
Yep, race 3. Drew post 4. It's same race that got canceled on January 19th that we had entered him in. This is a tough one to handicap based off the fact that many of these horses have not been able to do a ton, including us. And now we had the luxury that this horse was based at the training center for some time, where he was able to get a few works that aren't listed on the tab. But in these recent weeks, none of these horses have really been able to do much. And if they work, they were working over a very wet track, and no one was able to do anything significant enough from a fitness standpoint. So you got various horses coming off layoffs. The one thing I'll say is Phantom Ride's had plenty of fitness into him from his campaign that he had. So he probably has appreciated a little bit of a break. And, from that standpoint, I'm not worried about a fitness edge on him. But you just have to see how every horse handles it when they come in and don't have much training. They've been luckily able to get on the track the last 2 or 3 days galloping, but still been galloping over a wet, fast track from that standpoint. So we know that him getting back on the dirt is going to be a benefit. We were hoping that spot at Turfway would be a good spot for him last time, but he really just, in his 3 tries at Turfway, has not taken to it, even as older horse trying again. So getting him back on the dirt, and I think from a competition standpoint, it's a wide open race, but at the same time, he has all the right in the world to step up in a spot like that.
Well, I think it's a good sign that he's won over various dirt services and raced over, between Sam Houston going back to a Horseshoe Indy. He ran well enough at Lone Star in June of last summer. So, this level should help him regardless. It's a $30,000 claiming event, non-winners of 3. So post time on Sunday, first post 1:30 Eastern, but this race goes off at 2:26 Eastern. So be sure to get tied on. It's the 3rd race on the card. Phantom Ride 8-1. Plenty of value there on that morning line. He's never raced for this low of a tag. So here's an opportunity for him to get a win and gain some confidence. All right. A couple of fun runners for the weekend. Going to be a tremendous weekend indeed. Weekend preview. I am Nick Hines with Joe Moran, talking Pegasus. We put together a Pick 5 ticket. Big thank you to those that tuned in. But, Joe, an exciting announcement. The SEC approval came through, and we've got a few horses that are going to be available here, including our friends up in New York, the New York Bundle.
Yep. So, one of the biggest things is that we're making sure that everyone, if you want to indicate interest as we do it, you got to indicate interest, and then we start sending those offerings out in batches first before they go live to the public. So that indicate interest is going to end by the end of the day, Tuesday, January 30th. which will put those offerings live in the next few days after that in February. So just be on the lookout. If you have any interest, we have 3 different offerings. We got the New York bundle, which is got 5. You got 4 Colts and a filly.
Right.
You got the Incredible bundle, which is the authentic Colt and the Constitution filly. The authentic Colt's going to be going to trainer Steve Asmussen. The Constitution filly is going to be coming out west to trainer Richard Mandela. And then lastly, Blue Devil, we're giving him a little bit of a break after that Harlan's Holiday. He's a horse that was very successful this past summer at Saratoga, along with in Kentucky. So we shall have him ready, for the springtime, summertime, and that's our plan to give him a little refreshing during this time.
All right, and just be sure for those out there to check your emails too for all of that information regarding these 3 exciting packages. The New York bundle, the Incredible bundle, and Blue Devil, and these handicap horses are going to be running some big money throughout the year, as you'll come to find out. Blue Devil, as you mentioned, and getting a little bit of a kind of a respite, and I'm sure we'll appreciate that. Look forward to getting him in rhythm. So big opportunity for you all. So be sure to indicate interest. Get yourselves in line before Tuesday, no later than, and hopefully a kiss for luck, and we will be on our way. All right, Joe, we've got a few questions. Not a ton of questions. I don't know, maybe a few of the folks out there might be already partying it up, getting ready for the big day at Pegasus and Gulfstream, or perhaps they're working. Can you imagine that? Working on a Friday. Somebody's got to do it.
I'm glad I get to call this work, so I could be doing a lot worse things.
Yeah, they say you do what you love. You never have to work a day in your life, Joe.
Amen.
So keep doing what you love. All right, Marky Mark, what's up next for Simply Enchanting? First and foremost, you mentioned she came out of the race in good order. Does she come back in an entry-level allowance, non-2, or are we looking at stakes for her?
Well, I don't think we're going to have a choice. And by that, I mean, this time of the year to get that first level allowance race to go in Southern California is generally very slim. You have the 4 stakes series, that started in January. So I would say if everything goes to plan, she continues to train well. She got that extended period from the time we were ideally targeting a race at the end of December to get those extra works from a fitness standpoint, that I think trainer Phil D'Amato is going to have no problem stretching her out in distance. And I would say March 3rd, you have the grade 3 Santa Isabel, which is the prep for the grade 2 Santa Anita Oaks on April 6th. I would say that is going to be I don't want to lock it in, but I would say that's going to be our likely plan.
All right. Then on a personal note, as far as Forbidden Kingdom, he's back in the barn. What's the next step for him, and what does his work schedule look like?
Yeah, and he's doing great. Gallop this morning. We sent out a little video of him coming on the track this morning. We've had some rain, so, we had a few horses get back on the work tab this morning, but I would expect to see him back on the work tab tomorrow or Sunday.
Exciting stuff, Joe. It really is. And, once again, big thank you to those who have tuned in. Lee and our kid. Hey, Lee, how you doing, brother? I haven't seen Lee in a long time. The rain kind of keeps me away at times. But thank you, Lee. We appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Lee's one of the good guys in the game. You're all great people. We appreciate you, of course, out there in the land of my racehorse. Hopefully, we can have a big day and a big weekend indeed. Rosie's Alibi going in race 1 at Gulfstream Park on Saturday, January 27th. A nice price for now until the My Racehorse supporters show up at that proverbial mutual window. But it's been a pleasure. Joe, any final thoughts?
Well, it looks like we just got one more question that, Hannah, I don't know if you can throw on. Kenthari, the plan is to step up to stakes after that last performance. Ultra impressive. The key, kind of as we said right after that race, when we kind of talked about it on the show going through the race for Sea Fortress, of a horse that runs such a big effort, whether it's off a layoff, is giving them time to recover. And that was kind of the plan immediately with Kelly Breen. Kelly's done a great job for us with Edge Racing. So we had it in our mind right after that race that we were going to space it out. There's a sprint stake race, I believe, next weekend at Gulfstream. We knew we were going to skip that one and wait for the beginning of March. I believe the race, it's the Silks Run, $100,000 Silks Run going 5/8 on the turf. I believe it is March 9th. So everything's good. Had his first work back this morning, and we'll just kind of build him back up to that. But it was exciting to see him come back and perform at that level.
Certainly is. There is a perfect case in point where the patient's paying it forward. I know it's not easy, considering the fact that he's 5 years of age and essentially is just had 5 starts, but he's won 3 of those, and his last race was his best one yet. Brian, now we're getting questions rolling in here. Anticipation growing for a Secret Crush. This is a son of Candy Ride. When will the decision be made between Tampa and Gulfstream?
I'll say in the next, 48 hours. Right now, the plan is to run in that race at Tampa, which comes up first. Naturally, we don't want to get too excited, but he's certainly impressed the barn in the mornings, worked out of the gate, which was his second gate work in company with an unraced a horse named Refuel, who's a half to following C. So we haven't got that video yet, but once we send that out, that race will give us, one extra week of hopes and dreams of if he comes out and performs like we think he can. We'll leave that all in the hands of trainer Todd Pletch. But right now, that plan is February 3rd at Tampa. We'll just make sure he comes out of the race and go from there.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. It's so fun to watch these horses develop, from being yearlings once they're acquired and seeing the process going forward. Straight No Chaser, this question from Tyler Davis. Any idea timeline as far as getting him back into the starting gate?
Tyler, I wish I had a better answer for you. I've really given you a true timeline. We've been battling rain, which hasn't allowed him to truly progress as fast as we've wanted. But he is galloping. He's steadily galloping. The key is that, given the extent of time that he had off, just like we did with his jogging stint, he had about 30 days of jogging. Doesn't necessarily need 30 days of galloping, but he's going to need at least 3 weeks of galloping before he starts speed work. But I would say we're going to probably be regulated looking towards the spring once those works come. So that would be my assumption at this point. But, fingers crossed we have no setbacks. But he looks great. Dan couldn't be happier with him. And it'll sure be exciting to get him back in the starting gate.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a great spot for him in the sprint division, with the Breeders' Cup target being that big primary target. A lot of short-term goals and hoops that he has to get through in order to get to that point as well. Robert, Lane Way and hero status. Lane Way getting back into the swing of things, and hero status, what's the latest there?
Yep, Lane Way back doing well. Should work tomorrow or Sunday as well. We haven't got the schedules yet for tomorrow. Richard was debating working him last week, and he just gave him 1 extra week, but he's been galloping steadily, doing great. So, knock on wood, we've had no issues since coming out of that race, just not 100%. But thankfully, I didn't have to send him out off the racetrack or anything like that. Just be patient with him. He's one that's kind of every time we get excited, he kind of tells us he always needs to need a little more time, and he can't be over raced, but that's just going to be him. And we'll just have to take advantage of when he's good. And then hero status, he's training great. That new condition book just was released at Santa Anita for the early mid part of February. There's not really the ideal race that we were looking for. So we're going to kind of have to go to the drawing board, but that just came out last night. But from the horse's standpoint, he works tomorrow, doing great. And he sure looks like his old self. Whenever he works, he's got a beautiful stride on him. We will, for the Lasix purpose, have to run him in an allowance race for the tag. So, that's just something that we'll have to do. We'll just have to find the right spot for him. Physically, he's doing great.
All right, we have time for one more question, and thank you, Robert, for sending that in. A big thank you to those and each and every one of you who tuned in. Jim, any word on a day in Asia off that down the hill run?
Yeah, came out of the race perfectly fine. So we're just going to have to figure out what we want to do next with her. She's one that Kazushi has ridden her before at Woodbine in her North American debut. He kind of came right after the race and said, stretch her back out. When we look at that race at Belmont, that was really her best race in the U.S. when she went the route of ground. Granted, she didn't follow that up at Keeneland with the effort that we got, but she got a little rank in that race. So I think that's going to be the plan right now, is try to get her back out to a mile. The other experiment, not that it's going to be in the initial term, but since she's come, and even when she was with Christoph, she always worked very well on the dirt. And even though all of her races, and she's never run on the dirt, she's worked extremely well on the dirt. The category in California for fillies sprinting or routing on the dirt aren't extremely strong. So it's something that, we could kind of pair her up with a really good, dirt horse and kind of see how she works with that to get a gauge. But I would say the initial first thought's going to be to stretch her out. And I did just see one question, just that will be quick. Sees the Gray, did he leave for Oakland today? Yes, he did. And he arrived safely and in good order. So it'll be exciting to see him back in the barn with Dwayne Lucas.
Yeah, he got a little bit of hit on the Eclipse Awards last night. So
he did. Yep.
That's exciting. I want to thank you, all of you, for tuning in here on this Friday live show for Pegasus Saturday. It's going to be a big one. And, of course, Rosie's Alibi looking to set the tone for looks to be a winning day. Hopefully that all stakes pick 5 scores, and we're all going to be celebrating, whether it be virtually or actually there at Gulfstream Park. A big thank you to Hannah Bloom for all the work behind the scenes. But big thank you to you, Joe Moran. Appreciate you keeping us updated, doing a wonderful job as a racing manager, and hoping to continue winning ways here in 2024 with my racehorse. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, we'll see you in the winner's circle. Good luck this weekend.